Hi, it's been a while. I have been very busy for the last year. Also, I am in bed and in my pajamas. I shan't be taking questions at the present time. Thank you kindly. So, this video is going to be very scattered and all over the place because I have many thoughts and many ideas and topics to discuss, but they are all tied to the same overarching thing that I want to talk about. It's probably going to be a little bit messy, but I promise it will all make sense how everything is connected eventually. Bear with me. So, the central thing that I want to talk about in this here video is that I am working, that hand belongs to boyfriend, just by the way. I am working on a new book, story, book. I'm working on a new book. It actually came to me in a dream. Disclaimer. I hereby assert that this video, filmed and published on Friday the 4th of March 2022, is evidence of my idea and my ownership of it. If you steal it, I shall collect your kneecaps and turn them into Christmas tree decorations. So basically, I dreamt, among many other things, by the way, this was maybe a week, 2 weeks ago, I'm not too sure anymore, but I dreamt, among other things, that a street in my hometown had been like flattened by fire, and then I came across an orc who saw fit to chase me down the street and attack me. And in my dream head, I knew it as fact that only orcs can wield orc weapons. So, but when orc decided to throw his gigantic weapon at me in a moment of sheer desperation and reflex, I caught it and threw it back, and was like, fancy that. Then the orc decided to blast fire at me. I managed to dodge it, but it hit a whole bunch of peaceful, hippie-like elves in the road, and when the fire hit them, it started transforming them into orcs. And yeah, please don't ask me why I dreamt that. I can't tell you. So this dream was absolutely terrifying, to the point that I forced myself to wake up from it. But when I did, it was like, hi, hello there. That makes a pretty cool foundation for a new story, so here we are. But now a question. There are going to be a lot of questions throughout this video. Question 1. Have you ever had a story idea come to you in a dream? Fun fact, and this is something that I have always known, Imagica by Clive Barker, one of my absolute favorite books in the history of everything, was inspired by dreams that Clive Barker had. In fact, the Wikipedia page says, conception. The inspiration and many of the ideas for Imagica came to Clive Barker in dreams, and so inspired, he worked at an intense pace to complete the novel. Barker has stated he wrote the novel in 14 months, writing 14 to 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. This book is, wait for it, 1,136 pages long. So, yeah. Like I said, fun fact, this doesn't have anything to do with the rest of the video. I just wanted to tell you that. So after I had this dream, I started brainstorming some ideas for this orcish story with the help of Ronnie, the boyfriend. And although nothing was really set in stone, a general idea was developed. Said general idea was something like this. It was definitely going to be an urban fantasy story set right here in Johannesburg, South Africa. Humans, elves, and orcs share this world, but the orcs, largely seen as monsters, were driven underground. But then one fine day, they decided to revolt, emerged to the daylight, and burnt everything to the ground for 2 reasons. Number 1, to free themselves of oppression, and number 2, to turn the elves into orcs out of spite. because the elves were the ones who oppressed them. Now, the main character, a human female, of course, in all of this chaos, discovers that she can actually wield their weapons and therefore becomes central to taking them down. But we also added an element of cross-culturism. The idea was that each race had their own magic and weaponry that only they could wield, but main character eventually comes to realize that all of that is arbitrary and pretty much just separationism, if that is even a word. I tried to check, I didn't get a clear answer. So she and her friend, an orc male, go on a sort of journey, mostly underground, to learn all they can about the different styles of magic from the different cultures, basically forging weapons that have like different magic and stuff integrated into it. She's a blacksmith, by the way, for the orcs that live underground. But yeah, they go around from group to group, figuring out all they can about the different styles of magic and how they can use it to heal in a lot of ways, to create weapons that have like different magics infused into them. Ideas were thrown around about like collecting weapons or like armor from like each different culture and then becoming like super soldier. And there was also an idea that I had where it basically becomes up to them to destroy the tyranny because they have the keys to doing that. Again, it was something to that effect. This was just brainstorming. But it sounds pretty cool, right? I mean, of course it does. So, before I continue, I want to ask, question number 2. Do you ever get help from other people when you are developing your story or characters? And a sort of, like, branched out question from that, again, just out of curiosity, have you ever co-written a story or book with somebody else? I have never, by the way. So now back to the matter at hand. There is one problem with all of this. As excellent as this idea may be, if I may say so myself, and I will say so myself, I don't actually think I'd be capable of writing a story like that. Now, this next part of the video is going to seem like I am talking about something completely unrelated and off-topic, but I promise it's not. The circle's gonna come right back around. Again, bear with me. Now, a couple of nights ago, I watched a movie called Kiki's Delivery Service. A story, if you don't know, about a young witch who, when she turns 13, as tradition dictates, has to leave home and find her place in the world. She settles in a coastal town and almost by accident starts a magical delivery service. Also, just in case you didn't know, it's an anime movie. So, of course, its premise has fuck all to do with its resolution. I won't spoil it for you, just in case you haven't seen it. But it is the best example that I can think of when it comes to the differences between Western and, in this case, particularly Japanese storytelling. Now, I am going to generalize both of these things. Obviously, not every single story falls under these two in this way. I'm just generalizing, but it's to make my point. In Western storytelling, the formula is generally this. You have your setup, then you have your build-up, then the shit hits the fan, then the shit is either resolved or left hanging, and at the end of it, the audience is either left super satisfied or speculating. Whereas in Japanese storytelling, generally it's you have your setup, and then it is what it is. Question number 3. Why? Because I'm assuming that you totally do this. Why do you follow the Western storytelling formula? Question number 4. Why in literature is the Western storytelling formula seen as the one and only standard? I genuinely want to know. Anyway, back to the orcs. Here's my problem. I am good at many things. I think I'm good at world building, I think I'm good at idea generation, I think I'm good at concept development, character design, character development, and a whole bunch of other things. Heck, I'm even at a point in my life where I have the confidence to say that I am good at the writing itself. But what I'm absolutely not good at is writing action and war and plots against the government, and strategy, and rebellion, and other such fun things. When I started developing this orcish story, I almost defaulted to it peaking in a sort of war, against the orcish tyrants. And I wanted it to be in a way that the orcs were wrong in their actions, but not in why they committed them in the first place, because remember, they were oppressed. They were uprising, but in doing so, became the oppressors. I wanted that to be a sort of theme in the story where it's like, yeah, they're wrong, but they're also kind of not, like you can empathize with them, but you still kind of want to see them fall, like that sort of thing. And because of that, I knew that it would have to be a story of people rising up against them and trying to assassinate the orc president, and like I said, rebellion and war and strategy and surprise attacks and these great fantasy battles. But why does it have to be that way if I know that I'm not good at doing that? Like, don't take this the wrong way, but did I default to that because the white man told me that that's how stories are told? Because Europe and white America dictated that that's how fantasy stories are told? This is a genuine question that I would very much like an answer to. Regardless, that's just not gonna work for me. So, I have a new plan. I am going to write what I know. See, I have never had to take down the government, and I'm way too fucking lazy to figure out how that would be done. But I am a person who was technically born during apartheid and who has spent all 30 years of my life stuck in the middle of the aftermath of that. And so this new story that I'm working on will be an allegory of that. Also, I just want to add here that I'm also really good at writing romance, and there is no way that Kelly is going to write a story without romance in it. Question number 5. How much of what you write is actually what you know, and how much of it is what you make up as you go? I really didn't mean to make that rhyme. So now, I have a more refined idea. By the way, I have settled on the fact that the working title for the story is Abomination. So here's the premise of it. It's pretty much what I said before, actually. Humans, elves, and orcs share this world. But South Africa originally belonged to the orcs, until the elves came along and took it from them. The elves then deemed them inferior because they were considered ugly and barbaric, in fact, too ugly and too barbaric to live above ground. And so they were enslaved, but pretty much forced to live out their lives down below. Now, the humans are in between all of this. They were deemed just civilized and graceful enough to live beside the elves, but also just monstrous enough to be kept at arm's length. This went on for decades, perhaps even centuries, until eventually the orcs decided to literally take their own back. Now, the orcs are in power and live above ground, but the orc government is pretty much incompetent in every single way it's possible to be incompetent in. Then there's my main character, who, as a young girl, was pretty much best friends with other main character, Orcman. It's because they were so close as kids, because she was exposed to orc culture from the youngest of ages without the brainwashing causing that separation in her head, that she is able to wield orc weapons. She's not special. She's just not racist. So years go by, and as time goes on, the country gains more and more distance away from that uprising, and the two of them, now adults, start canoodling. They live in a world that pretends it has healed, that everybody holds hands and sings songs together because everybody is best friends. And this society, at face value, is, for all intents and purposes, an integrated one. But you still have the asshole elves who long for the good old days, and who didn't see the orcs coming back above ground as them taking their own back, but as a sort of crime that they shouldn't have done, because things were so much better when the elves were in control and the orcs were underground where they belong. See where I'm going with this? But also, you have the asshole orcs, who are intent on punishing innocent elves for crimes they really didn't commit, for the sins of the father. And you also have the asshole humans, who flip-flop between their allegiance to the elves and their allegiance to the orcs, depending on which one is most convenient and beneficial to them. Pretty much bystanders to everything, but that also just completely deny any accountability because they didn't do anything wrong, they were just there. And in the middle of all of this, you have the two main characters who are literally just trying to have a relationship and love each other in a world that, after all this time, still thinks they shouldn't. So, in summary, when I started developing this, I was almost eager to put that pressure on myself to write something that I know I am shit at writing. But now, I think I will take a leaf out of Japan's book. The setup is that humans, elves, and orcs share this world. The orcs were oppressed and driven underground until they decided to have an uprising, come back above ground, and burn everything to the ground so that they could take their own back. The rest is what it is. No great battles, no plots to take down tyrannical warmongers, no chosen ones, no adventures or pilgrimages, no hero's journey, nothing of the sort. It's just going to be a love story in an urban fantasy setting. A love story between an orc man and a human woman who live in a society that is healing, but still very much fucked up. Because that is what I am good at writing. But also, I'm not gonna lie, the main reason why I want to write this story is orc government. In a modern society, in a modern Johannesburg, orc government. That is probably the coolest idea that I have ever had. So, now that I've gotten all of that off of my chest, I suppose I have a story to go and work on. But first, I have some more questions. Firstly, just out of curiosity, which one of those ideas actually sounds cooler to you? The generic bad guys are bad guys, chosen one has power, chosen one rises up against bad guys to take them down, that sort of story, or the love story and allegory story. But then I would also like to know, would you be interested in more content to do with this particular story? I'm talking about writing vlogs maybe, or maybe when I get to like the actual plot development, I could make a video about that, or the character design and character development, general progress reports on this particular story. Would you be interested in that? And then I would like to know from you, what do you think of me writing and releasing the story as a serial, where basically I write a chapter or different parts of the story, finalize that, publish that, and then write and release the next part, and then write and release the next part. I know that technically that's not how serials are done, like they're written and then just released in serial format, but you get what I'm saying. Like, what do you think of that? I don't know if writers ever do that, but like, would you want to experience the story as it goes? And then, generally, what do you think of the idea? I really want to know, because I'm like super invested in this, and honestly, I'm not going to lie, it has been a really long time since I've actually wanted to start writing a story, so I'm just going to ride this wave as long as I possibly can. I'm not going to let it fall to the wayside. I really want to get started on this book. Book. But anyway, I think that's everything. I know that this video was very messy, but I hope it made sense. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I will appreciate that. And I think I'm just going to end off right here. I'm going to stop talking now. Bye!